What's up, y'all? How y'all feeling? It's Boss Brando. I'm back at y'all with another video. I hope y'all having a great Friday and everybody enjoying themselves. I hope everybody is doing well and feeling great. I hope y'all just been having a productive week and just having a great life and just making the best of the days that we have here on this earth. And I hope everybody just been enjoying themselves and staying active as well and making the best of every day and enjoying yourself with your family. But today I want to come at y'all with another topic that doesn't get addressed as much as the media. I feel like it's, washed away or overlooked as much. Should I say it's really not as addressed as it should be. We really see a lot of insensitivity when it comes to emotion. It's almost as if when it comes to funerals and death, a lot of us are so traumatized to the point where we see, if you often pay attention in the media or even in his everyday life when it comes to funerals, a lot of people just get together and look at funerals as social gatherings, on my point. And that may not be the case with everybody, but in my point of view, I feel like a lot of the people that are supposed to be honored and to be sent off in their last days or in that last moment, should I say, in life and to be remembered, a funeral is a homegoing service for a person. And it's almost as if a person just want to get fly, put on a $4,000-$5,000 outfit or whatever they wear and they can find in their closet or go get at a store and they can put on that's fresh and they know it's going to get attention, or they want to get Don Julio and Remy and Patron and they want to smoke, and people just want to do whatever they want to do to have fun. It's almost as if these funerals have become functions now, and that's something I don't really take great pleasure in. I don't like that. It's definitely not how I want to have my memory as. So I noticed that that's becoming an ongoing thing now, and I think that has a lot to do with the trauma that we face, not just as a black race. Now, it's not a racial thing, it's overall, but I noticed that's a ongoing thing, and social media definitely promotes that. I would love to hear y'all thoughts about that in the comments. I've experienced that a lot because I've been to many funerals, family members, family friends, a lot of people that I've, seen come and go in my life. I've been pallbearers at funerals, so I've experienced death pretty tremendous in my life in just 27 years. So it's definitely been something I've had to deal with, and unfortunately, I am still going to deal with. Should I say? I'm sorry. But I just don't really like the fact that a lot of people aren't remembered as they should be, and it's like a distasteful thing. Some people even get into fights at funerals, or it's a dispute over who may be dating who and things like that. Altercations. It's just not as, how can I say it? A lot of these ongoing services aren't as pleasant. They're not as the people that are supposed to be honored and sent away. They don't have the memory that they should have by being disrespected in that honor. And it's nothing wrong with having a great time. I'm not saying that, but I feel like it's a time and place for everything. So whatever a person's hobbies or habits may be, I personally don't feel like that should be carried into a homegrown service, especially like, drinking and smoking or people twerking on top of cars and that type of stuff. It's just a little too ghetto and ratchet. That's just not what I agree with, So that's something that I don't really take great pleasure in, and I see that a lot, So I just want to know, like, how do y'all feel about that? Is that something you've experienced, or is that something somebody that's done, or do you see this as well? I want to know if you're watching this video, can you relate to what I'm saying? And I notice especially in the urban culture, that's more promoted than any other race. I'm sorry, I notice, not saying that they don't do some of this stuff, whether it's Arabic or Jewish or white, Polish, Spanish, Italian, whatever it may be, or Asian, or whatever, whatever the other races may be. Not saying they don't do it, but it's not as globally accepted. Let's say it like that. I think a lot of the music that we consume have a lot to do with that. Besides these apps and what's promoted, it's almost like a trend. Think of it as this. If you see like a party, especially a lot of younger people, when they see like parties being promoted on social media and they don't have nothing to do, usually they draw into that because it's almost a sense of, okay, well, their brain is going to tell them, okay, this is where all the action is at. This is where I can have fun at, and this is where I'm gonna go. Especially if I got access to that place, and they may know a lot of people that's going. That's kind of what these funerals are like. So, I just want a lot of people to also, be mindful of that. Be mindful of who you say you love, because I don't really see a lot of that true devotion and love and honor when it comes to that last breath you're taking. You in that casket, in that hearse, and you know, you can't even see that physically to see, okay, how they really represent themselves, or how they acting at my homegoing service. Who's there to carry the casket? You know, how they conducting themselves. Is this what I agree with? You don't have no control of that. So be mindful how you live life. Of course, we can't really dictate what goes on in the afterlife. All we can do is live for today, and of course the future as well. We can only do what we can while we're here. But you know, what I would say to anyone that may be watching this is to, of course, not to behave this way. I would never condone that, because it's just so distasteful and disorderly, and it's not appropriate. So I would never condone anybody represent themselves in such a manner. But what I would say also is to be mindful of who you associate with, even family, you know, because in reality, let's be for real, a lot of people, they don't really care. You know, they don't really care. They just want to come out, you know, pop bottles, you know, put on a fresh fit. It's actually a competition as well with females. They want to see who got the longest hair, who the prettiest, who might pull a dude at the funeral or the repast, whatever it may be. Guys want to get fresh, who got the most money in their pocket, who pull up in a foreign car and all that. So it's, you know, it's all about competition. It's all about social acceptance a lot. And like I said, a lot of these people, they may really do have love for people, but I think the trauma have a lot to do with not being able to, you know, conduct themselves in such a proper manner, you know, and that's why we see a lot of the nonsense being promoted, and the twerking on top of the cars, and the dancing, and just the nonsense and the idiotic behavior that I don't agree with. And like I said, this is just an attack on my people, because, you know, I don't stand for that. But I just call it what's right and wrong, and it's black and white with me. There's no in between. So, you know, if you know me, then you know I stand for what's right. So that's all I'm about, you know. I call it like I see it, and I don't spell nothing, you know. So, you know, you either agree or disagree, and I don't have a problem with that at all, whichever, you know, it is what it is. So, but yeah, I would just say, you know, just understand that, you know, life is precious. You know, take advantage of every moment and every second, because, you know, we never know the time or the hour where we're gonna be called home, you know. So what I do is I live for me, and not only me, for my loved ones, but I have my life, of course, you know, they have theirs. You know, I think a lot about the future a lot, and that could be stressful, honestly. That could be stressful, especially when you can't control everything. You know I can't control everything, but what I can do is I can control my destiny in my life, and I can control where I'm going. And, you know, I can't control when I'm leaving, but I control where I'm going. So, you know, I just you know, me personally, I don't condone in a lot of, I don't associate with a lot of people, should I say. So my service probably wouldn't be like that. You know, this is the type of stuff I talk about with my mom, and, you know, I wouldn't have a lot of people, honestly. And that's unfortunate to say. It's not unfortunate because it's truthful, but what I mean by it's unfortunate is a lot of people love me. You know, a lot of people love me, a lot of people know me, but sometimes what we think is love isn't, you know. It could be, and that could be shown in a time where we may not even be able to see it, or, you know, do anything or say anything about that. And you don't want to, I don't want my memory disrespected in no way, shape, or form, you know. So do whatever we can to protect that, and I feel like that should be addressed sooner than later, you know. So but yeah, man, I feel like we got to get it together as a culture, you know, in many ways, and that's one of the ways I can say that, you know, because I've been looking at a lot of different content and things like that, and over the years, even personally, like I said, from being at these funerals and events, and not all of them, but some, I can say I have witnessed a lot of that, and people stopping the traffic in the funeral processions and jumping out, and, you know, that stuff was new to me at that time, because I never experienced it. This was 5-6 years back, burying so many people back to back and going to so many funerals, and, you know, I just found a lot of stuff kind of new to me and distasteful, so I didn't really like that. And I was thinking to myself, that's not what I want for me. You know, I didn't really like that at all. So, and on top of what I see on social media, a lot of people are doing this, and, you know, we see a lot of people going there to do money spreads, and, you know, it's just a lot of stuff, man. You know, so much I can talk about in this video. Y'all know exactly what I'm saying. Just look it up and research it. You know, I ain't had no clips or nothing to this, but, you know, it's just unfortunate. But, you know, we just gotta do a little bit better as a culture to really stand on some real principles and morals, and understand that, you know, everything ain't gotta be for a viral moment, because I feel like that's really what a lot of people chasing is: validation, attention, acceptance. You know, they want, you know, and a lot of people honestly don't know how to show remorse. A lot of people is hiding that pain. You know, a lot of people is, you know, they may care for the people that may be buried at that time, even relatives or not. They may be close friends, relatives. Some people may be burying their significant other, husband, wife, whatever it may be. But like I said, the trauma and the pain, the heartache is something that's hidden. And I would say don't hide that. You know, that's what I would say. You know, don't hide that, because, you know, when you bottle all that pain and emotion in, that could be transferred and going to another direction that it don't need to go. And you can use it that's masked up and put it to another source, or should I say substance. You know, when you got a lot on your mind and you've been through so much and you ain't expressing it at that time period, or at a certain time period, should I say, you're going to go to another avenue where you probably should need to go, or down another pathway. So, you know, when you want to shed the tears, or you want to cry, you got somebody you need to talk to or you can't talk to, you know, do that, you know. But, you know, I would rather that happen than to, you know, I'd rather for you all to do that, or for somebody to do it over me, than to, you know, act so disorderly like that, because, you know, we got enough against us already as a race, you know. So I just look at it like we gotta protect ourselves if nothing else, because ain't nobody coming to save us, man. You know, ain't nobody coming to save us. We are already at the bottom of the list when it comes to many areas, finances and fitness, education, you know, poverty. We already at the bottom, and we look down upon so much. You know, I don't like to see our people, my people, should I say, broadcast ourselves in such a distasteful manner, you know. So I just want to spread some knowledge and truth to y'all, and let y'all know what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking, and just, you know, give a generalization on this topic and give my overview on my generalized conception on what I feel and how I feel like how can I say it? On what I feel like the overall synopsis of the topic is, which is, you know, the insensitivity of, the insensitivity of emotion has become, it's like we almost have become so immune and desensitized to death, violence, and, you know, we don't even know what it looks like, or we can identify it, but we don't know how to deal with it. You know, we done been through so much pain, and this anybody, it ain't even the race thing no more, but it's so many people that have been through so much pain, especially when you come from, you know, inner cities and the local and the ghetto and the impoverished environments, and you don't have to bury people for so many reasons: gun violence, drug addiction, overdose, car crash, whatever it may be. Any reason. It don't even got to be that, but just any death in general, you know, because I buried people for many different variations. It was never one reason, you know. I buried my grandmother, my great-grandmother, you know, cousins, you know, so I've dealt with a lot of that. Family, friends, you know, so it was a lot. And that stuff weigh on you mentally, you know. You start to think like, you know, what is life really about? You know, what is God showing? Because especially when it's that's coming in such a fast space, and that, you know, it's so rapid, you know, and that's new, you know, that if that's new to you at that point in time in your life, that's a you know, quick nature of death, you know, that can strike you really quick, and you wouldn't be able to grieve. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm still not able to properly grieve, but I can say that, you know, I do express that, you know. I don't talk to everybody, but I do, you know, I let my pain out, and I vocalize it. You know, I write it down. I put it in my notes. I walk. I exercise. I get my frustration. I go to therapy. So I got ways to express those. I got ways to express that grief without turning into other ways of just neglecting it, or just turning into something that I don't even turn to. You know. So yeah, I'm gonna leave y'all with that, man. I ain't gonna hold y'all too long in this video. I actually got another one dropping. Y'all know I support y'all. I know y'all support me. Like I support y'all. I love y'all. Y'all my family. You know, this channel gonna keep growing. You know, just give it some time. You know, I'm not perfect at all. You know, so if you look for somebody that's perfect, you're looking in the wrong direction. I'm gonna tell you that now. And yeah, man, I'm just me. You know, I'm always be me. I'm a man that's growing each and every day, still finding myself in life, and, I know my call and my purpose though is to wake up the people, so that's all I can do. But y'all be blessed and be safe on this day, man, and just understand that life is precious once again. So I'm gonna be back with y'all with another.